All right, so here's another one where I'm doing the thing where I said I basically started this effort as, this, personality to do, which is to add to when Kirsha or Leaflet miss something, right? And there is another video that I think Leaflet kind of missed a lot in that I would like to go over, right? Because there's a lot of, like, things that are said that are not really addressed in the video that she's watching, and that, like, Leaflet doesn't herself talk about. But it actually proves the point that I've been making about how all of this in the woke mindset is not reductively a religion in, like, the, oh yeah, I'm just gonna make a false comparison to, like, for a rhetorical purpose. Like, no, actually the underlying structure of what we're talking about is fundamentally religious, and they cannot help but they wander into religious dialogue when they claim to not be religious, when they claim to be scientific and atheistic, right? But they do this all the fucking time, and people don't call them out on it. So here we go. This is Leave Them Kids Alone, and I actually really like the interviewer in this video. I think she did a really good job, especially calling out the Mott and Bailey fallacy that these people often use. And I do have to ask how good Leaflet's eyesight is, because she actually doesn't seem to see the tiger correctly on the shirt. But then again, I don't exactly want to look at the shirt either, but we'll continue.
Doctor confesses?
Dr. Helen Weberly was recently confronted live on air, and the woman interviewing her managed to get her to admit that she is selling hormones to 7-year-olds.
What?
You run a business selling puberty blockers to children.
Yeah, this shouldn't come as a shock, because how many people were advocating that, again, I should probably move my character, actually. How many people were advocating, again, that this to happen, and then when you called them out on it, it's like, oh, wait, you're the bad guy for calling them out on it. You're the one sowing discord and, violating community cohesion. What fallacy? Mott and Bailey. So a Mott and Bailey is where you have two different arguments. One is harder to defend, the other one is easier to defend. So what you really mean is the one that's harder to defend, but when you get attacked on that particular front, you move back from the Mott into the Bailey. It's a medieval, like, it's a medieval fortification term. You move to the Bailey, the more easy to defend position, and you pretend as if you're not actually trying to defend the harder position. So you fall back in the easier position to try to, again, make it seem as if the person you're arguing with didn't actually understand what you were saying, and potentially gaslight the audience that's listening to the, debate, to make it look like the other person's a fool, right? Or malicious and taking you out of context, when no, they actually said exactly what you said, exactly what you meant, and you're just lying to the people around you about oh wait, I'm not actually that extreme, right? This happens very often on the left, sometimes on the far right, on the actual extreme far right, right? But this is a common tactic. And yes, this shirt is very disgusting, but we'll get into it when we get into it.
Chat, look at the t-shirt, chat.
It actually kind of shocks me how no one here noticed the mastectomy scars on the shirt. It's like the first thing I saw when I saw this was like, okay, there's a mastectomy scar on the fucking chest of the tiger, lion, liger, whatever the fuck that is. It looks like it might be a liger. But yeah, so like I was just kind of shocked, because like I can't be the only one who watched this and noticed that, like, just right off the bat.
Well, I don't run a business selling puberty blockers to children, so I think we just need to clear that up.
So here is where we get into an issue called pedantry, right? Where you quibble over the ineffectual details of the terms that you're using without actually addressing the essence of the claim in the first place, right? So their issue here is that they're at a rhetorical disadvantage if they admit that they sell puberty blockers to children, but instead of actually, again, not selling puberty blockers to children, what ends up happening here is quibble over the definition of the word children. And I think later in the video, she even says that children is emotionally charged as a word. Again, that's not an issue of clarity, that's an issue of emotional reception. This individual right here is more concerned about how she is perceived because she wants to be deceptive. Right? She doesn't want you to understand what the hell is actually going on. So if you use language that actually clarifies, she will, again, tell you that you're being obfuscative, tell you that you're actually using emotional logic instead of actually being logical, when reasonably speaking, emotion and logic can actually be on the same side. They are independent systems. Sometimes they are not aligned, sometimes they are aligned, right? But people like this will fucking try to confuse you on this by trying to make it seem as if you're highly emotional, you're not being logical, right? The two are oftentimes not very amenable to each other, but they are things that you can hold in tandem. Do they not know scars fade? Well, let's just say they want the mastectomy scars to be seen and, you know, to show it off, right? And in fact, it says proud of my, and then there's no words beneath it. It's, again, the mastectomy scars are the thing that she's proud of in the picture, in the t-shirt, right? It is actually ideologically pro-gender dysphoria right here.
What do you do then?
Children don't need puberty blockers. Adolescents have puberty blockers once they've started puberty. So if we just clear that language up, because that's kind
Adolescents.
of like...
So here's the thing with the pedantry, right? Obviously, right out the gate, right? It's like children don't need puberty blockers. Adolescents do. First of all, I actually would agree that adolescents and children are distinct categories, just like adolescents and adults are distinct categories, right? At the same time, the way that the interviewer, is using children is synonymous with minor, and that's fine, right? As long as you define your terms beforehand. And she knows this. This individual knows that when the interviewer is saying children, they mean minors, right? And so again, she's saying, I don't sell puberty blockers to children, I sell them to adolescents. She knows what's being driven here, and instead of addressing the core of the complaint, because she also understands what the core of the complaint actually is, she instead deflects to an argument about the specific wording of the debate, right? This is pedantry. This is a attempt to deflect from the core by looking at the accidents, right?
Adolescents are
young people who have started puberty.
Adolescents,
so
under 18.
Teenagers.
Under
yeah.
18.
So here we go. This individual right here, the debater, not the debater, the interviewer, is clarifying exactly what they meant when they said children, right? Under 18, children. So now we have an explicit definition of the word children. You may not like that definition of the term, but we know what exactly they're talking about, right? And here, the entire debate over this word is entirely nonsensical. The fact, even just giving puberty blockers to minors itself is still a fucking horrendous thing to do, right? Because these people are too dumb, they're too inexperienced to understand the consequences of their action in the first place, right? There's a reason why, even though an adolescent is very clearly not a child, they're very clearly not an adult, right? They're in a transitionary period from stage A to stage B, right? And a transitionary period is an unfolding process whereby you move from lower to higher responsibility, right? Obviously, you're not going to treat a 17-year-old the same way you treat a 13-year-old. You'd be fucking retarded if you were going to do that, right? But at the same time, this is something that's being leveraged to obfuscate, not clarify, right? This idea that, like, oh yeah, the two are different is not being used here to clarify, but again, to actually prevent the conversation from moving in that direction in the first place, right? Because you can't get past this first hurdle, the conversation can't be had.
Children. Yeah. Well, it's a technical term. Children.
It's again, right? They want to this okay, yeah, fair enough.
I would not. That shirt, dude. I can't.
So adolescents are.
This is, dude. How is this real?
Are young people who have started puberty.
Adolescents,
so
under 18.
Teenagers.
Under
yeah.
18. So children.
Yeah.
Well, it's a technical term.
Dude, the fucking, like, it's like a tiger with, like, its eyes rolled up into the back of its skull. Like,
okay, so I will say that in this case, Leaflet is just, like, blind for some reason. I don't know why. But, like, those are its eyebrows, right? The black parts are not the irises. They're not the pupils. Those are the eyebrows, right? The eyes are just closed. It's still a disturbing image because, again, this is pro-mutilation, but, you know, I digress. Kionalo says, depends on the 17-year-old's mental state. Well, I mean, in Texas, we can send a 14-year-old to die for committing murder, so...
Like, what is going on?
This is probably one of the most revealing exchanges we have ever had caught on camera with an actual medical practitioner. The woman interviewing her does a brilliant job of cornering her to the point where she has no way out.
I actually do agree with this. I think the interviewer did a great job. I think there's a couple places they could have pressured her a little bit more, to show that, again, this is not a secular doctor. This is not atheism right here, right? People want to say, it's like, oh yeah, this is a product of godlessness. No, there is a God implicit in this system. It's not your God, but there is a God implicit in this system, and we'll see this as this goes forward.
The medical term, children, is a very emotive term, so children don't need puberty blockers.
I mean,
Again, exactly what I said is right there. It's an emotive term, and that's the part that she's concerned with. Not even that it's untrue. She's just concerned about the way it's going to be received. So here we have a confession that this is not, she's not concerned with the reality of the situation. She's concerned with the appearance of the situation, because the two are not the same thing. She's not concerned with the essence. She's concerned with the accidents, to use the Aristotelian terms, right? She's not concerned about how things actually are, but how things will be perceived to be. Kura says it's also very suggestive. I would agree. Kianala says it's kind of hard to see, but I'm on my phone, so I mean, that's fair. Leaflet, I'm assuming, is on her computer, so it's like I don't understand why she didn't see this.
And let me just be clear,
Yep.
I don't sell puberty blockers
They
to
give them for free.
children. Because actually young people in this country can't access puberty blockers. So just to clear that up, I don't sell puberty blockers
But the
to
puberty
children. But
the puberty
young
blockers that were
people-
supplied by your company, Gender GP, are
I would have pressed what she meant when she said young people per se, right? Because that sounds like another weasel word, obfuscative term that she's intentionally using, but we can let that pass.
given out for free. It's a lovely, warm, cuddly, fuzzy charity. Is that the case?
This is her first move, claimed that,
Jeez.
well, no, they're not children, there's people under 18. And then she claims, I don't sell them.
I mean, it's agreed. You said they're not given. You said that you don't sell them. You run a business. You founded a business called Gender GP that supplies these drugs to under 18s, children. That's what I call under 18s,
Okay,
children.
well, listen, you've laid it out that I am the supplier and seller of puberty blockers to children.
Would you give
and
them
I'm
for
just
free or not? Do you
clarifying
not give them to under 18s, or do you give them for free? Those are two simple questions.
She has her corner.
Yeah, again, she doesn't want to answer the question. I wonder why she doesn't want to answer the question, right? This isn't even an issue of, this isn't even an issue of, like, when did you stop beating your wife, right? You could also just say, I just don't do this, right? That is one way out of the entire situation, is like, I just don't, like, if someone's lying about it, you could also just say, it's like, I don't do that, right? But in this case, she's kind of backed into a corner because she's already admitted, yeah, she is the head of this company, right? So is this company a profit or a non-profit, right? We've already established what this company does. They didn't really push back on the core of the claim, right? So she doesn't really answer, because how the fuck do you answer this and save face, right? Let's see. Kionado says they don't sell puberty blockers to children for a reason. Yeah, there is a real use for puberty blockers, which they do actually go into, but it's not supposed to be used just because you hate your body, right? The actual legitimate use for puberty blockers is for something like precocious puberty. If a kid hits puberty at like fucking 5 years old, that can cause some real serious medical issues. You actually do need to suppress puberty if they hit it that fucking early, right? And then you can unsuppress the puberty by removing the puberty blockers and then letting the puberty unfold under a natural phase, right? But again, a lot of these things that are being abused actually do have real-world beneficial uses for edge cases. It's again this small contingent of people that want to take these things that are used for like edge case situations and then generalize it for everyone to use for some reason, and we'll see the reason why later. Kura says, wears a mask of intelligence, although poorly drawn, and a mask of kindness, but behind the mask is only stupidity and decisive deviousness and malice. Yeah, I mean, like, every kindness has a saw in this particular situation.
Here. There's nothing she can do. She just goes, she has no response.
Do you not give them to under 18s, or do you give them for free? Those are two simple questions.
Answer the fucking question.
You can't answer those questions, so you do sell
I've
them.
just clarified it several times. I don't sell puberty blockers
So they're given to them for free.
children.
I sell puberty blockers to people under 18.
Again, it's like, the whole thing here hinges on they're refusing to engage in the conversation because they disagree with the definition. But their disagreement with the definition is not to be precise. It's based on exactly what they said earlier. It's based on the emotive response it will elicit, right? So anyway, Ken says, I hit puberty in 4th grade, but that was in the 90s, so puberty blockers weren't a thing. I mean, yeah, it happens, right? There can be pretty terrible consequences for, again, precocious puberty, but that's what puberty blockers actually exist for, to treat a legitimate medical condition. They do not exist to treat gender dysphoria.
The doctors.
To under 18s.
You want me to answer or you don't want me to answer?
I'm trying to clarify your answer.
And I'm clarifying with you that you introduced me to the world as somebody who runs a business selling puberty blockers to children. And I'm clarifying to you that that's not the case.
You're no longer involved in the business.
So did you want to move on to the conversion?
Yes, I'd love to, but I mean, I don't think if we are clear about this, but yeah, you're right. Let's move on.
I'm sure you would like to move on.
Again, it's like, well, this is not exactly going... operationally wise, this is not going good for me in the in the looks department. I gotta say face here, right? Oh my god, face, it turns out, is not just a Chinese idea. It is also a dialectical idea.
Do you believe that there are children who are born in the wrong body?
Born in the wrong body. Again, it's just, Julie, you need to really watch your language. This is such
don't tell me what language to use.
Now here's the thing. In a very pedantic level, the queer theorist doctor is actually kind of correct that you do need to watch your language, because you need to be clear on what you're talking about, right? If you make an ass of yourself, these people will actually capitalize on it and make you look like a fool, right? So just for the sake of, again, your own face, you should probably be very clear when you speak, right? At the same time, right? This thing about her complaint about language is, again, not because of its clarity. It's because she doesn't like how the terms are being defined, right? And not for an honest reason.
That's not going to go down well for you, Helen.
Well, I just did.
Transgender.
It's like, oh my god, bro. It's like you ask a question, right? Like, is the sun hot? And they're like, well, I mean, I don't know. It might be a trick question. Like,
Transgender children.
you define hot.
Well, it's not hot by definition, because hot is a sensation. If you don't feel it, then it's not hot. If you were to go into the sun, you would just die, right? It's like, so by definition, it's not hot. It's like, you're a retard. Right? I mean, technically, your line of reasoning does logically follow from A to B, but you had to manipulate the meaning of the terms to get there. So it's completely disinfucking-genuous, right?
There are
children who believe that they're born in the wrong body exist.
I didn't say they're born in the wrong body, because it's such an
That's why I
offensive
asked you
thing
that
to
question.
say.
She can't contend with the logic itself. She must claim it's offensive to question it. Watch what happens when the interviewer asks her, what is the youngest patient you have done this to?
Oh yeah, here's the time to glow, right? Let's see. Keanu says, the left will always find a way to perverse something made for good. Yes. Let's see. Kuro says definition was set, but like most of this generation of vipers, they only know how to poison with their fangs, not caring and craving the destruction they are trying to bring about. I would agree.
What's the youngest age that your business that you founded, along with your husband, who I believe has been struck off as a GP? You're no longer registered, but you are you're a doctor. You no longer have a license to practice. That was your choice in this country.
I mean, if the husband was struck as a GP, I would like to know why, but that's not really relevant to the conversation at hand.
The youngest age at which puberty blockers have been given to an under 18 child, as I'm going to use that word, by your company, Gender GP?
The appropriate time to give puberty blockers is when puberty starts.
So what's the youngest age?
The youngest age for puberty blockers, I mean, some children at the age of 3 or 4 can start puberty, and we give them puberty blockers.
And here's the thing. Okay, I'm going to let Leaflet react first, because I have something to say here.
Wait, hold on. So you're telling me this is a doctor? This is a doctor, actually?
Okay, I'm going to have to point this out, because... thank you for the 15 consecutive, Kinnock. Evening, honorable chatters, right? Leaflet is actually wrong on this part, because again, and the actual interviewer came prepared for this, because they knew that this fucking talking point was going to come up, right? They're almost certainly trying to leverage the concept of precocious puberty, as we just discussed, to, again, obfuscate. When it's like, no, for a fact that we're talking about, like, giving puberty blockers to kids. You know that we're not asking about precocious puberty. You know we're asking about gender dysphoria. right? Or alleged gender dysphoria, or, you know, Munchausen by proxy, which is what a lot of these kids actually are suffering from, is that, like, their mothers have a, you know, need to destroy their children for some reason. And I don't know, like, deep, evil stuff, but still, that's what they're actually asking about. And they're not going to engage with, like, the actual intention. They're not even going to ask to clarify to make sure that they understand what the intention is, right? Because, like, if you didn't know and you were just asking to clarify, that's one thing, right? But, you know.
But that's a medical treatment.
Oh, that's a medical treatment.
That's a medical treatment for
Dr.
precocious.
Hart.
Now you see the way that she responded to that too. Right? Oh, well, that's a medical treat, right? It's like she's again treating through her tone. It's not just what they say; it's how they say it, right? These people will often make implications through the tone of their voice, right? It's like, oh yeah, so that's a medical treatment, but the thing you're asking about's not a medical treatment, eh? It's like, yeah, so it's an attempt to, again, make the other person, belittle the other person, to make them seem as if they're not actually worth considering.
It comes back in again with now
No, that
a
is-
medical
that is
treatment.
literally what
you need
that
to be
is for.
really careful
That's
of your
not for a
advice.
trans child.
Oh, I see. That's for proper
Are you under the
needs.
illusion? Are you under the illusion that people who don't have a medical degree are incapable of reading what?
Dude, I really, honestly, am starting to be such a believer in, like, Malcolm's idea that a lot of these people are swamp hags. Like,
They are. There's a reason, again, that we call them sorcerers, right? Is because they don't actually engage with reality. The entire point is to, again, shift the frame by which you look at the world, and therefore change the way that you can see and understand the world. Yes. Kura says, oh no, I've been caught. Time to move the goalpost every damn time. Yeah, again, these people are not actually interested in reality. They're interested in imposing their will to power onto the world around them.
the old school, like, archetype of, like, a swamp hag, and that they're just like, yeah, they're like the old lady in the swamp that you're supposed to be worried about.
Yep.
But now they're in plain sight.
medical experts say.
Well, interpreted.
You think I've
So yeah, I mean, the obvious thing about credentialism is that, like, fucking, you actually don't need to go to college to actually catch up to speed with any given academic theory, right? At least reading the paper. You can actually just expose yourself to enough of the material and actually learn the material your own, right? Some of the, this has actually happened multiple times with some of the, you know, physicists and chemists and biologists, right? Who actually catch themselves up to speed and then, you know, contend with the big hitters who actually went to college, right? But that being said, that's, again, neither here nor there. This is the error of credentialism. This is an epistemological it's not really a theory, but it's an epistemological, like, invention made to say that, again, all knowledge, because epistemology is the theory of knowledge, right? Credentialism would be the theory that knowledge can only really be obtained through a credentialed source, right? So if the person can actually show their work, but they don't have the credentials, then it doesn't matter that they were able to show their work and prove their case through, again, experiments, through logic, through argumentation. No, it doesn't matter because they don't carry the credentials, right? So you don't listen to the person without the credentials. Similarly, if you don't have the credentials, then you don't have the epistemological training to understand how to actually, to understand how to read the credentialed work, right? This is what's going on here. Kuro says, I don't agree with Malcolm on quite a few things, especially when it comes to religion, but his viewpoint on this is spot on. I would agree.
Wrongly interpreted. So when children are given puberty blockers
yeah.
for precocious puberty
Yeah.
at an inappropriate time to slow their body down, to enable them to develop naturally, that is a medical treatment as opposed to a preferential treatment from a child who believes that they are trans. You understand the difference?
You're so cruel.
There it is again.
Again, the fact of the matter isn't the case, right? She tries to make it into a moral condemnation. You're so cruel. What's cruel about it, right? And she can't really explain it in a way that, you know, actually makes any kind of sense to someone who's thinking about it, right? Because that's not the point. The point is make the accusation, and then the hope is that the person backs up and tries to defend themselves against the accusation instead of pushing forward and crushing them where they know that they can't actually stand, right? Sometimes just pushing forward through the accusation and then crushing the person by maintaining pressure is actually the correct thing to do.
I'm cruel now.
It makes having a conversation impossible. This is all to evade questioning.
Yeah.
This is how they all are.
Ovaries can enter puberty as early as
This is the
7.
reason, by the way. I was just
This is also actually technically not true. They were just talking about precocious puberty, so they should know, or this individual who was just like, okay, this individual, the one who pretends to be a doctor should know that in the medical literature, there are examples of precocious puberty in females that is way younger than 7. Again, there's a reason why we have these technologies in the first place. On occasion, there is a freak incident that comes out, right? So just also sometimes delving into these topics, you can also humiliate them with their own, bodies of research. They should know better, but they don't, because they don't actually care about the reality of the situation. They only care about getting fucking points so they can move their own dialectical goals ahead, right?
It's like, I'm done having a conversation. You guys clearly don't want to have
Why
one.
can't you just answer the question? What age?
I mean, I did voice of the farm. I did look at that shirt.
No, I'm not.
So you're saying
Thank you.
Puberty starters,
So,
you're 7, 8, 9.
yes.
Okay?
So you're saying that your company has given puberty blockers
I'm
to
saying
children as young
doctors
as... I
prescribe.
didn't ask about doctors. I asked about your company.
But a company can't sell
The
or
people working for
give.
the company that you're the
doctors,
founder of.
The doctors
The doctors, yeah.
working
What's
with
the
Gender
youngest age
GP.
they've
I
given them
just
to...
told
Again, so here she's trying to offload responsibility from herself because she knows that it's going bad, right? It's like, oh, we didn't give it. The doctors gave it, right? Oh, yeah, the doctors prescribed it. It's not, it's out of our hands. We have to do this, right? So, again, like, she's in a corner. She knows she's in a bad spot. So right now she's just deflecting. First of all, she's trying to deflect the conversation by moving this from a factual conversation to an emotive, moral conversation, right? I don't really believe that this individual on the right-hand side not leaflet, the one with the fucking queer shirt, it actually believes in some kind of objective sense of right or wrong, right? I'm pretty sure that they are some kind of non-cognitivist of some kind, right? Usually the case.
7 years
8,
old.
9, 10, whenever puberty starts.
Okay, and is that for trans?
7.
For because the
For
children,
transgendered
That's for
people.
7 years
Yeah.
old. And
Okay, so now she answers the fucking question. Now she actually answers the fucking question. To whom were the doctors hired by? Right? Yeah, that's another question, right? But now she actually answers the question. Did you hear that? It's like, now she actually answers. Hold on.
okay, and is that for trans?
7.
For because the
For
children,
transgendered
That's for
people.
7 years
Yeah.
old.
So yes, now she actually answers the fucking question as originally posed that she knew was being asked, right? You can dispute the use of terms and still continue with the conversation without being overly pedantic, right? But again, they're hiding behind pedantry, hoping that you will be too exhausted by the conversation or too burdened to give a shit in the conversation, so you just won't pay attention, or you'll hopefully miss something when they're speaking fast, right? This is one of the tactics these people use.
And your company has been criticised by a senior judge, who wasn't a party to this particular court case, for not informing young patients about the risks of things like the train they're getting onto the train tracks.
Honestly,
Yeah, the
this entire
Hold on.
risks of things like the train they're getting onto the train tracks.
honestly,
Okay,
this
never mind.
entire idea that kids know what anything at the age of 7, 8, 9 is just ridiculous.
Yeah, obviously
and
not.
This applies to everything, by the way. This is
Yeah, because all human the thing is, all human knowledge is ultimately derived from sense perception, right? All human knowledge is directly derived from initially sense perception, which can then be used to make logical inferences that we can then turn into abstractions to better understand the world, right? And all of that is tied to neurological circuitry, right? So if you haven't had the time to develop the experiences and your brain has not developed to a particular point, then obviously you're just not going to be able to make, decisions as an adult. Everyone knows this. This is why children and adolescents are not treated as adults. They are not, right? But again, this is also why we don't treat children the same way we do adolescents. This is why we don't treat adolescents the way we do adults. These are different stages of human development, and we understand that the human potential for moral reasoning unfolds over time, unless there's some kind of brain disorder that causes you to not understand basic cause and effect reality. I believe I just saw her mocking the interviewer for counting her points on her fingers. Okay, I was wondering what the fuck she was doing with the fingers thing. I actually turned to the side for a moment, and I thought she might have been crossing her wrist, to mock to mock the interviewer. But it was okay. When I turned to counting her fingers, okay. I don't know what specifically she's doing, but yeah, you bring that up. She probably is doing that, to be perfectly honest. Again, these people don't treat you like equals. They will belittle you just to, again, have a sense of false superiority.
Isn't just like your gender. This is also like kids saying like, but like, you know, global warming and like we need to like save the earth. Like, shut the fuck up. You're an idiot. You're a kid. Shut up. You don't know anything.
Based.
You don't know anything. Shut up and go catch some frogs. You know what I mean? Go skateboarding or something. I don't want to fucking hear from you.
So I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we need to re-normalize telling kids that they're stupid and then they should just shut the fuck up. Just like listen to the adult, just shut up, just go, you know,
I would somewhat disagree with this. Yes, we need to re-normalize telling kids no, absolutely not. But it does turn out that, again, from younger than people think, you can actually explain to children why certain things are the way they are. You can't do it with everything, and you shouldn't want to do it with everything, right? But whenever you can explain the reasoning for the decision, you should probably do that. And then when they inevitably decide not to, and they eat the consequences of not following your, you know, your no, then they can make on their own the connection. I was told this was the reason why. They're not going to think about it in that way, but their brain will make connections. I was told not to do this. I was told why not to do this. I did forbidden thing. Forbidden thing had logical consequences. That's actually how children learn, right? You actually can put those seeds to help your kids understand better, right? There's a reason why I didn't get into a lot of trouble where like on certain things that a lot of other people did when I was young. And that's because, again, I would be told why a thing is actually not, you know, good. And then when I was dumb enough to do it, my brain could actually make the logical inference of people weren't bullshitting me. And so now that I had both the abstract and the practical example, it was, again, it helped to set that in the brain because you don't live in the abstract. You live in the world of practical consequences. But again, I digress, right? Let's see. I don't know about calling them stupid, but telling them that they are wrong or they don't know what they're talking about. Yes, absolutely, right? Kids don't have any kind of special knowledge because, again, they just exist. And this idea that, again, they intrinsically know, right? That is an assumption that there is a priori knowledge. So knowledge not coming from outside, but knowledge intrinsic in the human mind itself, right? There is no such knowledge, by the way. And that because there is knowledge which is completely a priori, that can be reasoned from no prior premises or experiences, right? Then that knowledge is privileged, right? That knowledge is true. That places the primacy not on reality, that places the primacy on consciousness itself, right? It's not the external world that's real, it's the internal world that's most real. And as we go along, you'll see this in action, right? Kuro says, proof they don't treat people with rational thoughts as human. Exactly, right?
You're not right, I'm an adult, you're wrong. Go play with some dolls. That's what we need to do.
Quoting some of the risks there are: infertility, sexual dysfunction, bone density damage, brain developmental risk. Now,
you know nothing, Jon Snow.
Further down the line, but we know the evidence is clear. Don't have a medical degree, but the evidence is clear. Read the reports, see what the medical experts who do know.
It's not like you can't read a fucking meta-analysis, right? Like, if you really want to know, the cumulative research, read a meta-analysis. Anyone can fucking do it, right? All you need is a basic understanding of statistics, and most people can read a medical analysis. They may not understand all the words, but you know how you fix that problem? Oh, let me get a medical dictionary. Hold on. Which, by the way, are free online, right? It's like, oh, that's what that means. Continue reading. I hit this word that I don't understand. Medical dictionary. Oh, that's what that means. I've had to translate from doctorese to family member on a number of occasions when it comes to family member getting what would you say, paperwork from their doctors explaining what's going on. And on occasion, I'll hit a word. I have no fucking idea what it means. And you know what I do? Go to a medical dictionary. Oh, that's what the term means. Doesn't happen very often because a lot of it can be disentangled if you just understand what the Latin and Greek prefixes are. But it's prefixes, suffixes, and stems are. But again, I digress, right? It's actually not that hard to catch yourself up to speed to read any individual paper, right? We're not talking about fucking the abstract mathematics of E equals EPR theory, right? Which, by the way, you could probably do yourself too. But again, I digress. A lot of this isn't nearly as hard as people think to read a fucking academic paper. Yeah, and again, this smug, bitch over here is like, oh yeah, again, she's belittling this person because they don't have the credentials, so they can't understand the magic lingo, right? Phantom Crustacean says this is literally keeping the Bible from people because people are illiterate. I mean, kind of, yeah, right? Let's see, Kiana, I was told not to touch a hot thing. My cousin dared me to touch the hot thing, so I did, and I regretted it. A summary of a story of my childhood when my family went camping. Yeah, right? Let's see. Kura says, I'm not Muslim, but I have read the Quran, read through the Hadiths. I know more about it than the morons telling people it's a book of peace. Well, I mean, it is a book of peace. Peace of you over there, peace of you over there, peace of you everywhere, right?
Say that actually the vast majority of youngsters who start on these puberty blockers move on to cross-sections, and that's what the reaction is.
Dead Bub says, when I was a kid, I wanted Indiana Jones to marry Xena.
Okay,
the
that's funny.
warrior princess.
Okay, that's funny.
How can anyone under the age of 18, how can they make a decision about their future like that?
Yeah, and the thing is like, she has a point here because it's not just about like, because it's also about the scale of time, right? When you're younger, like obviously like a 5-year-old, and a 5-year-old gets grounded for like a week, that's going to seem catastrophic to a 5-year-old because they have no fucking sense of time, right? But then again, as you get older, and then as you get older, you have more of a sense of time, and then the same scale of time seems to move by faster and faster. It doesn't actually, but because you have a context of larger and larger scales of time, it doesn't feel as much, right? Because again, you now have something to compare it to, and it becomes less and less in that comparison. But again, so it's like, how exactly is a person under 18 supposed to gauge the rest of their life and the consequences thereof with regards to, again, their fertility, bone density, and all this, brain development? How are they supposed to actually do this? They've not even been alive for 2 decades.
This is the key question.
I think we have to give young people credit for understanding a lot of things in healthcare. So whether it's going in for a broken arm, whether it's going in for your adenoids, whether it's going
Notice the false equivalence here, right?
in for grommets, whether it's going for puberty blockers.
Oh, you just slipped in the puberty blockers there. No.
Yeah. Again, it's a false equivalence. Hold on.
Kid knowing their arm is broken is not logically comparable to a 7-year-old grappling with the philosophy of their identity. These are not logically comparable.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, if you have to explain it, then the person you're talking to is one of 3 things: too young to be engaged in the conversation, too neurologically handicapped to handle the conversation, or 3, well, I guess there's 4. 3, a bad actor, or 4, I guess, completely spellbound. I guess you can help a person who's spellbound at least, but 3 of those you can't really help with the conversation, right? And it's very much more likely you're dealing with one of the first 3 and not the spellbound category in that conversation, right? Because you just point that out to someone who actually is spellbound, and a lot of times they'll immediately understand the problem, even if they don't like that the problem is there, right? Let's see. Keanu says, my first ship as a kid was Wonder Woman and the Hulk, because some 70 reruns of live action TV series of those 2 that showed back to back. Okay, that is actually quite humorous, I'm not gonna lie.
It's going for open heart surgery. You have to understand that parents and children make decisions.
But a
for
lot
medical
of that is
care.
medical
And that
treatment for a problem.
And the problem is gender incongruence, gender dysphoria.
But it's not.
By the way, again, this is the thing where it's the medicalization of psychology, right? It's like, it's psychology ultimately is a medical problem. That's the logic underlying here, right? The 2 are actually not distinct from each other. And if gender dysphoria is a medical problem, and there's an underlying reason why gender dysphoria has to be a medical problem under this person's view, we will get there. But yeah, it's the medicalization of therapy, it's the medicalization of psychology, it's the medicalization of behavior, right? That's the entire point here, right? If everything is a medical problem, then nothing is subject to corrective behavior. This is a part of like critical criminology too, right? Then nothing is actually subject to moral evaluation, because it's just an issue of your biochemistry, right? Or it's an issue of something preceding your biochemistry, which determines your biochemistry, right? So
Development.
Like, Kuro says, what the absolute fuck, lol? Kids know about having a broken arm. Who the fuck doesn't? It's like, unless you have like a precocious insensitivity to pain. Like, is it? No, it's not precocious. It's congenital. There you go. Congenital insensitivity to pain. Yeah, you gotta know, right? As long as you have a neurons firing, you know, ouch, my arm's broken. even if the endorphins are kicking in, you don't feel it at first. It's like, oh, my arm is staircase. That's probably not supposed to look like that, right? Keanu says, in my defense, Wonder Woman's lover looked a lot like Hulk's act. You know, fair enough. That's at least there's two layers of like connection there.
And the reason that we got into this discussion be here today was because
Lifelong clientele, very profitable. There is a profit motive behind this. Yes, you are absolutely right to point this out, right? But there's actually an ideological purpose behind this too, and it is health equity. I remember when the American Psychological Association posted their whole dossier on health equity, and it's like, oh. So now the American Psychological Association is suggesting that doctors need to be reallocated so that the good doctors are given to the poor and the bad doctors are given to the well-off. So that way you can redistribute harm, since you can't redistribute, goods. Interesting. Doctor communism. Interesting. But you are right about that, Philip.
of this campaign.
You're wearing a T-shirt. Oh gosh, yes, proud of my stripes.
Yeah.
This is
And
the
actually,
Lush campaign, and it's got a tiger apparently celebrating having mastectomy scar.
Okay, that was way worse than I thought.
Yeah, I don't understand how Leaflet didn't really get that. I also don't understand how she's seeing a tiger with eyes rolled in the back of their head. I just don't get it. Like, I'm having a hard time seeing that. But, like...
That was way worse than I thought. Dude, with the fucking eyes rolled up into the back of his skull, too. Like, dude, what is happening?
Perfectly healthy breasts.
Proud of my scars, yeah.
I thought it was just a furry.
Yeah, but
I
puberty
hadn't registered that was what you were wearing. Oh, it literally makes me want to vomit.
Oh, would you like to... Can we have a bucket in here, please? But puberty blockers prevent this.
Okay, so it's okay for her to have moral disgust, but the other lady, no, she can't have moral disgust at all, right? Like, my moral disgust is actually justified. Your moral disgust is banal and not worth my actual consideration. Can we get a bucket in here, right? Again, complete lack of consideration, complete lack of respect for the other side, because again, these people don't respect you. They don't actually care about you. They want your children to be made into their own image, not into like your image.
So on the one hand, you're saying puberty blockers, you could give them to anybody else, but not for trans things, as you say.
Well, for non-medical reasons.
And yet, actually, that puberty blocker.
But again, she's making the case that gender dysphoria is actually a medical case.
Prevent breast development in transgender boys.
What that really means is...
Yeah, again, she said that, again, to obfuscate, right? It's like, when you hear prevents breast development in boys, you might think gynecomastia. Gynecomastia, I think it is, right? Whereas, like, males develop more feminine breasts because of a hormone disorder, right? But it's like, obviously, that's not what she's talking about, right? Again, there's the obvious attempt to conflate. The people who are initiated in the, again, language will know that it's like, oh yeah, you're stopping someone from entering into a state of being they didn't choose to be in. Newsflash, no one chose to enter into a state of being. That's not a choice you get to make. Second of all, it's like the people who don't might actually get tripped up and misunderstand what's being said. Leaflet has a pure side that is surprising at times. I mean, yeah, fair enough.
They prevent a girl from having breasts.
Yeah.
Her perfectly healthy breast on a girl who needs her...
Well, you're again misgendering every single transgender boy out
I'm using
there.
the correct...
Remember, words are violence, right? And misgendering is it's not just a category error; it's a moral failing.
A little boy or a little girl who says, I believe I'm trans, I believe that I am a girl or a boy, the opposite from what they have been. I don't believe in assigned at birth, for what they are. What is it that's different about them?
Well, the belief is not their belief. Their understanding is of who they are. It's your belief. You believe by
Again, you see what's going on here, right? It's an attempt at gaslighting. It's not their belief, it's your belief, right? They're not even going to justify the whole idea that, again, someone can believe that, someone can... Again, we had this whole conversation. Are you born in the wrong body, right? Is it even possible to be born in the wrong body? Do these people believe that they were born in the wrong body? We have to ask this question because back in the day, when a lot of this language was a lot more clumsy, this was an actual talking point on the trans ideology side, was the idea of being born in the wrong body, right? This did not pan over too well. So what happened? The language had to be changed, right? And the ultimate language, and I thought she mentioned something in here that I may be misremembering from a different video, but the underlying explanation here is it's rooted in Cartesianism, but I'll let it play for a bit to see if my spot will be in here. No, not my spot, but like the spot I was thinking of is in here.
Looking down there, that is a little boy, and what
I believe
you're
that
doing,
someone with a penis is a boy.
Yeah.
I'm a dinosaur.
Again, looking down there, like again. Again, the framing is kind of interesting because we all know what she's trying to do rhetorically.
That's it. It's over. I'm a dinosaur now, and I will be.
And again, see, notice that there's a difference here, right? The one on the right is trying to say that it's absurd that being born with a penis would mean that you're a boy, right? Where the other one is like, that's obvious, right? The reason why is because their primacy is on two different things, right? So from a classical perspective, in the Aristotelian tradition, which is what most of the sciences are actually based off of, right? Science is based on a foundation of either Aristotelianism or Platonism. That is the actual philosophical root that allowed the sciences to take root and like explode in the first place, right? And the foundational idea of Aristotelianism is that you are a body with a soul, right? Now, let me define these terms because people don't seem to understand these terms half the time. And that's fine because everyone grows up in a post-Cartesian world, so the words have been changed to mean different things. In an Aristotelian sense, the body is exactly that, your physical body, right? We all know what that is. But the soul refers to specifically the vital principle, that which makes a thing alive as opposed to dead, of a particular body, right? This is also why the Aristotelian tradition does not support reincarnation on a metaphysical level, right? Because it's like the vital principle of John's body is not the vital principle of let's use VTubers as an example, right? The vital principle of Leaflet's body is not the vital principle of Asari's body, right? So one cannot be used for the other. It's like trying to put an engine in the wrong, in the wrong vehicle. It just does not have the power to actually start up. Whatever that thing that makes a thing alive as opposed to dead is, doesn't really matter. So long as there is such a thing that makes a thing alive as opposed to dead, that is what we mean when we say soul in the Aristotelian tradition, right? And if that's the case, then what you are is a body with a soul, right? So if there is a conflict between your self-perception and your physical reality, what that means is that the you that's treated is the body, right? So your body takes primacy over your self-conception. It's your mind that has to be brought into realignment with your bodily reality, right? On the other hand, if you take the Platonic worldview, right? And it's not just Plato per se, because Plato would have hated this as well, but it's like the Platonic and the Gnostic idea, where they say, oh, your body is not what you really are. You're actually a spirit, right? You're actually a form. The Aristotelians and the Platonists use the word form in English, but they use two different words in Greek, and it explains a lot. In the Aristotelian tradition, the word for a form, which would be this, like in a living thing, a soul, is morphe. It's where we get the word morphology from, shape, right? It is if you will, the shape of a thing, because that's just like the etymological thing, right? There's a deeper logic behind it, but it's not relevant for right now. The word in Platonism to refer to a form is hidea. Now, hidea is also the root word in English for the word idea, right? Or ideal, right? The idea that there is this, again, idea that transcends any physical thing, right? There's this concept of a thing that has no material, that does not need material instantiation. It's always existed in some transcendent mind, like outside of time and space. And it is only ever imperfectly realized within space and time due to the limits of space and time. But there is this perfect, like reflection or reality of the thing outside of space and time. So in that particular worldview, you are actually not your body. You are your consciousness. You are a ghost, right? A ghost in a machine. This is, not exactly, this is not exactly Cartesianism, but Cartesianism ultimately comes from this strand of thought. And the thing is like, okay, now let's posit that there's a conflict between your self-perception and your physical reality, right? If you are the ghost and not the machine, then no matter how useful the machine is, that's not you, right? So if the machine is wonky and the mind has if the machine is like not matching up to your self-perception, not wonky, right? Then it's the machine that has to be brought into alignment with your ghost, because you are a ghost, not the machine. Whereas in the Aristotelian tradition, you are the machine who happens to have a ghost, right? So, yes, the flesh machine, right? So I'm solidly in the Aristotelian tradition. We are bodies with souls, not souls with bodies, right? These lead to very different outcomes morally and pragmatically. And anthropologically, they imply very different things, right? This is not a small difference. But yeah, so the quote-unquote doctor here, right, is ultimately part of the Platonic and Gnostic worldview that, again, you are actually your consciousness. Your ghost is what you are. So if your ghost disagrees with your body, well, then that is an oppression of the body that needs to be mitigated because your mind is closer to perfection than your body is. Whereas, again, under the interviewer's position, she is very clearly... She may not know this, but she is leaning on the Aristotelian tradition of you are a body, not a ghost, right? So if your ghost has a disagreement with your body is the one that takes primacy because that is what you most fundamentally are, right? So yeah, there's that underlying idea right there. It's not metaphysically neutral. There is actually an underlying metaphysical premise explaining this.
I will be treated as a dinosaur, honestly. Like, dude, what kind of dinosaur should I be? What kind of dinosaur should I be, chat? What do you think? Which one's the most OP, right? So it's like, I mean...
Hold on, what did Julio write there?
What kind of dinosaur should I be, chat? What do you think?
The oldest one? Wait, that's a good question. I don't think Herrerasaurus is an actual dinosaur, but I don't think most people would know that.
Which one's the most OP, right? So it's like, I mean, T-Rex is the
You would have to go for a sauropod in that case, but okay.
obvious answer, but I mean, like, probably velociraptors, because then you can have friends, right?
We actually have more evidence of pack behavior in tyrannosaurs than we do in dromaeosaurs. That's not to say that there were no dromaeosaurs that had pack behavior, but if you just look at dogs, for example, some species of dogs are solitary, some species of dogs are pack hunters. Look at cats again, some species of cats are colonial, some hunt in packs, most are, solitary. It's kind of hard to tell from just bones, and it's very likely that some dromaeosaurs were pack hunters and some were, not. And it's probably the same thing with tyrannosaurs as well. Some species were probably pack hunters, some not. A little dinosaur rant there, I guess.
Kind of like, I really like Ankylosaurus, but then they only eat they only eat grass, and that seems really awful.
Okay, Ankylosaurus might have eaten grass, because grass was a Cretaceous invention. That got patched in the Cretaceous period. It didn't exist in the Jurassic period, so Stegosaurus was not eating grass. It was eating mostly ferns and bushes and other stuff. Let's see. Kianala says, I would love a vid series of you explaining Gnosticism so I can reference it easy. Yeah, sure, I could probably find some stuff to get specific on it. But I'd have to look in to see... Actually, I could probably read some Gnostic texts online, on stream too. So it's like we could set up just alternating between different texts to read. That would probably work as well. Philip says it's why some believe they could exist if their ghost was transferred into a data bank. Yeah, ultimately that's, again, you are actually yes, that whole mind uploading part is actually that. If you're your body and not actually a ghost, then you can't upload your mind because you're not your mind in the first place. It's only ever going to be a copy, right? So it's like, yeah, no, that wouldn't, that actually doesn't help you escape death. It only helps you escape death if it actually turns out that Plato was right and you're a ghost and not, not the machine, because then your ghost could be transferred from one to another. But again, I digress. I'm not a Platonist, right? I don't see any good reason to think Platonism is any kind of as true in any respect.
So I don't know how I feel about that one. That was my favorite though. Ankylosaurus was my favorite because they had a mace.
I always liked Nanotyrannus, but the thing is I was hoping that Nanotyrannus, when everyone said it was just juvenile T-Rex, was actually like its own thing. I couldn't prove it, but I was really hoping for it, and it turned out I was right. It's just like, damn, completely fucking
A
happenstance.
shield on their back. I thought they were like so cool. You know, I was like, wow, that's like the cleric fucking dinosaur. Yeah, Ankylosaurus is always my favorite, dude. Me too. But the only problem is they only eat grass. That seems like I'd rather not. You know, eat only
Am I
grass.
mistaken in that?
Would you like me to finish or
Okay,
not?
just clarify.
Biology tells us that. I'm not sure that's a belief.
So you believe by looking at a penis that that child is a boy?
Yes, I
Yeah, because she believes that the child is its body and not a ghost, whereas the other person believes the child is a ghost in a body, right? It doesn't matter how useful the machine is. If you're a ghost in the machine, you're still not the machine, and you're still trapped in the machine.
But that child may well be saying to you, you've got it wrong, your belief is wrong. Actually, inside my soul,
Right there. Right there. Again, we're not dealing with secular conversation right there. They can't fucking help it every time they slip up on doing something like this, right? Actually, the child might tell you your belief is wrong. Actually, inside my soul, there it is. We're not talking biology. We are pretending to talk about biology when we are actually talking about metaphysics, and we're talking about really bad metaphysics, actually, to be perfectly honest. Every fucking time, if you press them into this, they will do this. There's so many times where I've seen people support queer theory or gender ideology, or if you press them in the right way, they will absolutely admit, even if they don't want to, that yes, we are operating not in the terms of science, we are operating on the terms of religious belief structures.
Kids don't know.
And remember what I said, that like if there's a priori knowledge, then you don't need to refer to your sense perception, because then you can derive truth from just pure reason, which, by the way, the only reason you develop reason in the first place is through interaction through your sense perceptions. I digress. But if that is the case, if you are a ghost in the machine, right, and you actually come from a more perfect world, right, the world of, again, a more perfect world, the world of abstractions, then of course looking inside yourself without recourse to any kind of empirical lesser data, you could come to more true conclusions regardless of what the experiments actually say, right? Again, this is the idea in Gnosticism that, again, we already have all that information within us. We have just forgotten how to access it, right? Dude, I wrote a whole fucking song about this, right? It was a little long, but I wrote a whole fucking song about this. It's called, oh my god, it's called The Gospel After Gender. If you want to, oh my god. Nightway Fantasy says, it's almost like they know it's an attack on the very soul. Operation on Fifis. Kind of, yes, but it's operating on bad premises. Whether those premises are legitimately held or not, some people do actually legitimately believe these things. Other people do not, but it's hard to tell sometimes. But yeah, again, it's like
Anything. They don't know anything at their age, right? And it's like, maybe if you had a time machine, you could make a fucking like, maybe if you had a time machine,
even if you had a time machine, it wouldn't work, because again, if you are your body, it doesn't matter, right? Because then you're putting the primacy on the wrong thing.
maybe if you could travel to the future and then look at the life of that kid and then be like, okay, maybe that kid is trans. That's like the only way that you could do it. There's no way you could possibly do this without that kind of technology. There's no way.
Again, I don't even think that having that technology would actually justify it. I think you have to import a lot of auxiliary premises in order to even get that hypothesis to work. Let's see. Philip says, wait, hold on. Nightwave Fantasy says, hey, me too, in my demons dressed in wonder. Lol. Fair enough. Philip says it was to eliminate the individual. Yes.
My heart, inside my brain, I'm a girl. And people like you who deny that.
Again, in my heart, inside my brain, I'm a girl. Again, They're not even talking about self-perception. They're talking about want, right? What do I desire, right? What is being called... Again, we're actually cutting to the whole thing. This has nothing to do with medicine. This has nothing to do with psychology in the sense of like understanding how a person properly operates. This has nothing to do with psychiatry. This has nothing to do with anything scientific. This is a mechanism to, again, to suppress reality for some desire, right? In this case, the desire to be something else than what you are.
Do an awful lot of harm. And people like you who put that out
And
there.
they're using the harm language right here. It's right. It's like, what does that mean, right? First of all, there's studies suppressed in many countries about, like, again, the damage that these transgender treatments can actually, like, cause. In fact, actually, this is why many countries in Europe are shutting down these kinds of, procedures in the first place, right? Why they're like actually shutting down many transgender treatments is because, it turns out that when you actually have the information at hand, maybe this doesn't work, right? Maybe it just doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, then you're actually causing harm by performing this. But if you define it in such a way that, again, you place your self-perception as the root, as the thing that we're caring about, then yeah, it would cause harm to not just let someone do this. But I care more about what happens to them, again, and what they actually are. And since I believe they're a body, I don't really care that it might make them sad if they don't get what they want, right? I just care that they don't fucking die or mutilate themselves, right? Let's see. It's incantations. Oh yeah, it absolutely is. It is spellcasting.
On big social media.
Kids say that all sorts of shit. It's like I told my dad I was a plant. I told all my friends I was a plant. Like like I was like photosynthesizing and stuff. I was like really into like dryads and stuff.
Oh god. She's always had a bit of a fascination with the Fae.
Such a lot of harm to those people who are transgender.
But where does that end? Because
it doesn't, and that's the function, right? The function is it will never end. Wherever the dialectical engine of synthesis pushes you, it's never going to be the end. It will always push further and further and further because that's the design of the engine. It's the root of process philosophy, which places emphasis not on being in and of itself as the classical scholastics did, but rather places the primacy on becoming, right? This is the problem where we get into the whole idea of the historical process, right? This is where we get into the whole problem, with Hegel. This is where we get into the whole problem of, again, like, if something is if the thing is only when it's becoming, then it never is in the first place, right? In order for something to become, it has to exist in the first place, right? Oh my God. God, I hate process philosophy so much.
no one can tell me what's inside my soul, what's inside my heart. What if a perfectly healthy young girl believes that she is overweight? Should you give her drugs to change her body?
Again, that's a good point, and people hate this example because it actually proves the point. If the ghost is saying, oh yeah, my body is in disorder with me, and I want to be skinnier, and you're already deathly skinny, well, we've already shown that in this case, the ghost takes precedent over the body, right? So the ghost wins. And then the point people will say is like, well, no, that's unhealthy. It's like, why is it unhealthy? Oh, because it messes with the body? Interesting, because the ghost will survive under a Platonic worldview whether or not the body is there. Again, you are not the machine, you're the ghost, right? So why is it that, again, when we push it to this area, the ghost ends up not winning, but otherwise the ghost wins, right?
My child said to me, I'm Spider-Man.
Again, they hate this because the whole idea of, like, again, identification. There's nothing logically different between the gender dysphoria crowd, again, or like gender dysphoria, where it's like I have a bad relationship with my self-perception of me and my sex, right? It's not gender dysphoria, it's sexual dysphoria. To be perfect, it's a sex dysphoria because gender is a wrong category in the first place, right? Gender was moved from a grammatical category to a linguistic category, which basically just means a class or a category, right? This is why when you talk about in linguistics, when you move outside of the Indo-European languages, you can have like various genders that have nothing to do with like the sex of the referent, right? including things like animacy classes, such as like whether a thing is alive or dead. You know, you can have genders for things like rocks and like cylindrical objects, like in fucking Bantu languages. But they're not talking about like what you're thinking of when you hear gender. The reason why we in the Europe and like European speaking languages think about this is because in like the Uralic Finnic languages, in the Indo-European languages, and in there's another one in Europe that I can't remember off the top of my head, but like usually the class category in language that we care about is the sex of the thing, right? So we have masculine, feminine, and neuter, right? Those are the three most common. In other places, the aliveness of the thing is actually the thing that's categorized encoded in the word, right? Like in Tamil. Or again, what the object is used for, such as, for example, distinguishing between a mass noun like water, or distinguishing again between cylindrical objects that you can use as a tool, again, as in like spears or like sticks, or distinguishing between animals and human beings, right? That's another example of a gender category in Bantu languages. We're not talking about sex here, we're talking about a linguistic classification system of reference and nouns. That's what gender actually means. The entire purpose of taking gender from linguistics and applying it to where it is now is itself a long-term psyop to obfuscate the conversation, right? Let's see. Kianala says, who doesn't have a fascination of the Fae? I mean, that's fair. Most vehicles are feminine. Exactly, right? We're not like even in like European languages, like ladybug in French, I think is masculine, right? So it's like it's a general pattern. It's not even, again, it's about linguistic categorization of nouns. I use she for my car instinctively. Okay, fair enough. So yeah, again, like we shouldn't even be using the term gender and gender dysphoria, right? Because what does it mean? Anyway, I'm gonna get sidetracked on this. I'm gonna pull away from the conversation about language and like again self-perception for a little bit because it bothers the hell out of me.
Should I affirm that as well?
Do you not think I've not been asked that before?
Well, exactly.
Spider-Man is not an identity.
Spider-Man's not.
I mean, is it? Is it though? I mean, what's the difference between like gender dysphoria? I have a bad relationship with my body, so I have to change my body so that because I can't become the other sex, but I can become as close as possible to the other sex, right? Versus body integrity identity disorder, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, I have a bad relationship with a particular part of my body, so I don't want it associated with me at all, right? Body integrity identity disorder is where it's like there's a part of the body, not the whole body, but a part of the body where it's like you don't feel as if it should belong, right? So you have people with this disorder who will try to get a limb amputated, for example. Well, I've read one account of someone who had their eyes gouged out, basically, because they didn't like their eyes, right? I've read an account of someone who went to get themselves paralyzed because they didn't like their capacity to walk. It's another form of body integrity identity disorder. Again, this entire thing is the body doesn't conform to my self-perception, so it needs to be changed to fit my self-perception. Oh, that doesn't count because it's self-destructive? Okay, fair enough. How about castration? Is that not functionally body integrity identity disorder adjacent? Right? Is it mastectomy? Not. What's the difference between a mastectomy and like cutting off, and again, removing your hand because you don't like your breast, and on the other hand, you don't like your arm, right? It is functionally the same. Let's see. Kenox says a good car has nice curves like a female. Yep. Kenol says women always had problems with their breasts. Don't mean we're trans. Yeah, obviously, right? But I mean, it goes other places, right? It's like if you can just redefine yourself based off your self-perception. Again, what about species dysphoria, which is a DSM recognized disorder, by the way, right? Oh, I don't like, and it's exactly what it sounds like, right? If gender dysphoria is dysphoria with your sex, right? Species dysphoria is dysphoria with being a human being, right? It is a real medical condition. It is a real psychiatric condition. There are people who actually have their brain broken, I guess, by something. I don't know what it is to that degree. So it's like, but we don't entertain that. Or at least we don't yet. There are people who want us to entertain that, but we don't yet. But if we continue on this path of this dialectical reasoning, we will be entertaining that soon enough. So yeah, it's just, and again, they don't call it age dysphoria, but we've also all seen cases in the news of people who, again, don't identify with their actual age. They're like, oh yeah, I identify as like a 70-year-old girl. It's like, what's the difference here? What's the difference here? Again, the ghost has made a decree against the body. The body is not what you are, so what's the difference, right? All of these sound absurd, but the underlying logic is identical. The ghost has decreed against the body. You are not the body. No matter how useful the body is, it is just a tool, an instrument for the ghost. Right? So it's like, what?
Spider-Man is a fictional character from the television of a bloke who climbs
But
up
a child
walls.
could honestly be.
As Philip says, most of what is attempted to pass as progressive is in the DSM-5. Yeah, again, obviously anyone who's familiar with the communist goals from the 60s is aware of the whole push to medicalize behavior, right? And to take, that again, PSYOP, right? And it's a PSYOP that actually worked.
Believe that they are
Not a
Spider-Man.
belief.
How are we defining what is a valid belief? Because this is all
Yeah.
subjective. But you act like Spider-Man would be too crazy.
Yeah, and the fact that we even have to get into a conversation about epistemology, which is exactly what's going on here, to talk about, again, medicine in like a practical sense is fucking absurd, right? We have absolutely lost the plot.
I am
Keanu says, I want to identify with my age, but my outside is too young while my inner workings are too old. That's fair.
female. because
You know what? Absolutely, man. It just comes that day one day where it's like you wake up and it's like, oh, my neck. I slept wrong. My neck is cricked, and then your neck is cricked for like 3 days.
female.
Yes, and that's
Because
what,
I actually am.
That's
And
right.
I can think.
Exactly.
I can think that I'm
You've
a.
got it. You've got it.
I can think that I'm.
You've got it. You got it. No, she does not. Again, she's trying to protect. She's trying to make it seem as if she's actually won the conversation. Or if you actually pay attention to the conversation, she absolutely did not win the conversation. And in fact, she's trying to frame this disagreement as if they're actually in agreement. So again, this person's being incredibly disingenuous.
I'm a German Shepherd dog if I want, but it doesn't mean
The
that.
problem is like they're planting all of this shit in the heads of kids. It's,
Obviously.
it's obvious.
And again, kids are uniquely vulnerable to this because they don't actually understand how the world works, right? And again, you can convince someone that it's actually, there's been a number of people who've been convinced that you can reason a priori instead of everything being reasoned a posteriori, right? Posteriori. Fuck, I can't pronounce Latin right now. But again, it's like, if you can convince someone that they actually secretly know that they're actually, again, something that they actually are, and that's like, if you can actually convince people about that, and they have experience with the world around them, what are you going to deal with that? How easy is that going to be for people who have very little formative experience with the world around them? That's the reason, right? And again, I don't want to bring up, again, the drag pedagogy thing that I brought up last stream, right? The whole, again, where the queer theorist author was pointing out that they're trying to leave a trail of glitter that will never come out of the carpet, right? Just, let's see. Phantom Crustacean says they are unironically advocating for identifying as an attack helicopter. Yeah, they will be really annoyed when you point it out, right? That was supposed to be a goddamn joke.
German Shepherd is a dog. We're talking about human identities here.
She tries to limit
But why? Why? And that's the thing, right? It's like, again, sorry.
it down to just human identities. There's a lot of people out there that claim to be furries or animals or things of beyond human species.
I am so frustrated at 12:59 because I was wanted to ask you, like, whether if a troubled child came to you as a doctor with anorexia, believing she was too fat, would you affirm that and help her lose more weight?
Are you really asking that?
Are you really asking that? Again, it's a disingenuous way because it's a legitimate question. It's not clear what the boundary marker is here, right? Because it can't be the health of the body because we've already determined that the health of the body is not actually the primary guide for her treatment, right? It's actually whether or not the body and the mind align with each other, right? And if the issue is the body and the mind aligning with each other, why wouldn't you treat anorexia the same way you treat gender dysphoria? Right? It's like she's calling out an inconsistency, and it's a very obvious inconsistency because it turns out, again, it frustrates me so much. Oh my god.
She can't contend
good
with
question.
that hypothetical at all. Once again, she just claims, how dare you?
How dare
Are you really asking me that? Yes, because you're a fucking idiot, actually. Right? Unironically. So, yeah, I kind of wanted to just crash out about that because it was just... it's just really fucking frustrating, right? Because, like, you point out that these people are not atheists. They actually are, they are operating under religious assumptions. And then people think you're crazy, but then you can point out exactly where the reasoning lies. And then people are like, well, no one's acting. And then you get like fucking idiots like Tim Pool, where it's like, do you really think people think this way? They don't have to actively think this way, you dickhead. What do you think shadow project? What do you think anytime anyone talks about projection? Do you really think they think this way? They don't have to think this way. We're talking about underlying psychological processes, right? And how they manifest in behavior and cognition. Right? Just because you don't directly think about a thing does not mean it's not going on in like in your psychological processes. Oh my god, sorry. I needed to crash out about that. I had things to say, right?